Lesbian Detectives. Unsolved cases. She's still missing. Yeah, they haven't found her yet. Well, let's talk about it.
They say he vanished without a trace. Could it be a psychotic break or a tragic accident? Police don't know where the body went. Unsolved murders, body still missing. That's unheard. Where's the witness? Lesbian detectives, what's going on? City on high alert, this out the norm. He did what, the who? Man, that ain't real, these crimes ain't true. Then come uncover these theories with us. We live right now, tuning in is a must.
Right now, Lesbian Detectives. Lesbian Detectives. We about to start the show, so get your popcorn ready to go. Pay attention to the message. I present to you Lesbian Detectives.
This is Lesbian Detectives. I'm Sierra.
And I'm Elizabeth.
And we are here to talk about missing and unsolved murders.
We are discussing cases that you have forgotten about or never even heard of.
So sit back, relax, and let's start this podcast. Guys, my daughter started pre-K3 today. And I was said, welcome back. No, we have to talk about this. It was a hard day. And I took off because I'm like, oh, I get to walk her into school, right? They was like, no, you're going to have to drop her off right here. Like,
see your way out.
See, and I'm like, okay, my daughter's going to cry, because she has been to daycare before, but
part-time.
Yeah, part-time. So this is different. I'm like, my baby's going to cry for me. Psych. She got out the car. Like, she waved to the teacher, like, hi, I Sienna. Hi, I Sienna. Like, I'm like, okay. And I'm like, get your backpack. She's like, okay, bye. Like, she didn't even say bye or I love you guys. She just left. She like, I said, I love you, bye. And she just closed the door and kept on walking. I'm like, kid, I've been with you for 3 years. We're 3 years strong. And you didn't look back and care. She didn't, guys. So I'm going to see how tomorrow goes, okay? We're going to see how tomorrow goes. And I feel like it's going to go the same way. Because she likes going to, school and daycare.
She likes learning.
She likes learning, and she learns so much. They have them so, packed up. So that's my vent of the day from a new mom dealing with a independent toddler.
Who steals socks, by the way.
Oh my God. So we have a parent chat, right? So one little girl, shoes got switched with another kid. And then my daughter, I looked at her feet. I'm like, yo, these aren't the socks I put on you today. Where's your socks, kid? Found out her little boy switch socks. I'm like, yeah, what going on? So my friend told me that's going to be a lot of little kids, they switch clothes. We don't know why. They're just like, hey, I like your socks or shoes better today. So I'm glad that we have the parent chat because it's going to be faithfully. Like, hey, anybody see my kid outfit? So I don't pick her up. My mom pick her up. So I'm like, hey, just check her outfit. Just make sure hey, this is the outfit that she wore this morning. I'm sending her a picture faithfully, hey. So that's our life update. And I'm ready for our vacation. So finally coming soon. Now let's say my favorite line. Now let's get into the episode. Imagine it's a warm summer morning and an 11-year-old girl leaves her home to do something completely ordinary. She isn't running away. She isn't meeting someone. She had no idea that this would be the last time her family sees her alive. She is only supposed to be gone for a short time, but she never comes home. As the hours pass, her family begins searching the neighborhood. At first, there is still hope. Maybe she stopped somewhere. Maybe someone saw her. Maybe there's a simple explanation for why she hasn't returned. Then, as the afternoon turns into evening, the search takes a sudden turn. Her body is discovered in a wooded area, not far from where she lives. Investigators quickly realize that this little girl didn't simply disappear. Someone had attacked her, and the person responsible had tried to hide what they had done. There is a weapon near her body. There are signs that someone attempted to conceal her. And there are details at the crime scene that leave investigators with more questions than answers. Who would do something like this to a child? And how could someone take a little girl from her neighborhood in the middle of the day without being caught? Investigators began looking at the people who were nearby. They find possible suspects. They question people who may have seen something. But the evidence isn't enough to tell them exactly who is responsible. But then the case goes cold. For decades, the family is left without answers. But 40 years later, something happens that brings the case back to life. A newspaper investigation puts the little girl murder back in the public eye. And shortly afterward, someone comes forward with an incredible claim. A man who is already dead confessed to knowing what happened. And according to the story, he didn't just confess, he named another man. But there's a problem. The man accused of the murder denies having anything to do with it. And before he could ever stand on trial, he dies. So was the confession the truth? Was an innocent man accused? And after all these years, could the answer to the little girl murder have been lost with the people who knew what really happened? This is a case of Brenda Sue Brown. To understand what happened to Brenda, we have to go back to July 27, 1966 in Shelby, North Carolina. Brenda Sue Brown was born on May 15, 1955. She was 11 years old that summer and lived with her family, including her younger sisters. Like most children her age, day-to-day life consists of family and school and the ordinary routines of childhood. On the morning of July 27, Brenda had a small argument with her younger sisters over a powder puff compact. It was nothing that would have seemed important at the time, but after Brenda was killed, the ordinary disagreement became one of the last memories her family had of her that morning. Not long afterwards, Brenda's mother, Gladys Brown, asked her to walk her 6-year-old sister, Patricia, to Head Start school. The class was about 2 blocks from their house, so Brenda walked her younger sister there. Patricia arrived at that class, but Brenda never returned home. At first, there was no obvious reason for anyone to panic. Brenda had only been gone a short time. Her family may have expected her to walk back home after dropping Patricia off. But when she didn't come back, Gladys began looking for her. At around 10:15 that morning, Brenda's mother started going through the neighborhood, asking people if they had seen her daughter. She went door to door and drove around the area, asking neighbors and passing cars whether they had noticed Brenda. The search eventually expanded beyond the family. Members of the Shelby Rescue Squad joined the effort, and people began searching the surrounding areas. For several hours, the family still had reasons to hope that Brenda might be found alive. She had disappeared that morning, and there was still a possibility that someone had seen her or knew where she had gone. But by the evening, the search had taken a devastating turn. At around 6:45 p.m., rescue workers searching a wooded area near downtown Shelby found Brenda's body. She was around 150 feet from South Lafayette Street, not far from her home. Investigators quickly determined that Brenda had been murdered, and her body had been covered with freshly cut tree limbs, leaves, and brushes. Her red and white dress had been removed and was found folded neatly on top of the bush covering her body. Nearby, investigators discovered a bloody rock. The medical examiner determined that Brenda had been beaten to death with the rock. Her skull had been fractured in 12 places. Although her body was nude, police reported that she had not been raped. Now investigators had to work backwards. They had to figure out where Brenda had gone after she left her sister, who she may have encountered, and why she ended up in those woods. One thing about the crime scene immediately stood out. Brenda's body had been found close to South Lafayette Street, a road with heavy traffic. Investigators believe that if someone had driven up, forced Brenda into a vehicle, and then taken her into the woods, someone might have noticed. Because of that, police believe the killer may have approached Brenda on foot. That means the person responsible could have been someone who was already in the area. Investigators began looking at the people who might have been nearby that morning. What they didn't know yet was that some of the people they questioned in 1966 would remain connected to Brenda's case for decades, and one piece of evidence collected that day would still matter 40 years later. Investigators had a murdered child, a crime scene, a community that wanted answers. But finding out who killed Brenda wasn't going to be easy. One of the people police wanted to locate was an unidentified, bald white man. Just days before Brenda's murder, the man had reportedly exposed himself to Brenda's sister. That incident had already raised concerns with the family. After Brenda was killed, investigators had to consider whether the man could somehow be connected, but they couldn't find him. Without knowing his identity, investigators couldn't question him further or determine whether he had been there that morning. He remained as an unidentified person of interest, and eventually that lead went nowhere. Then investigators turned their attention to a 13-year-old boy named Robert Roseburg. Robert lived only a few hundred yards from the area where Brenda's body was discovered. Police also knew that he had been seen in the area on that morning of her murder. Investigators questioned him. According to former Shelby police officer Harold Smith, Robert didn't answer their question. He reportedly sat there silently and refused to respond. To Smith, this behavior was suspicious. But suspicious wasn't enough. Police knew Robert had been nearby. They knew he lived close to the crime scene. They knew he had been seen in the area. But none of that proved he had killed Brenda. So Robert was released. In the years that followed, people would question why police hadn't asked him more questions. There was even rumors that Robert had been protected by a local crime organization that allegedly had influence in Shelby at the time. But those allegations were never proven. What investigators did have was physical evidence from the crime scene. A bloody rock had been found near Brenda's body. Investigators also collected clothing, biology samples, fingernail scrapings, a hair sample, branches from the area, and other items they could hope eventually help identify the person responsible. And then there was a bloody palm print. Investigators had found a palm print on Brenda's shoes at the time. They didn't know whose hand had left it there. They also couldn't say with certainty whether the prints belonged to Brenda's killer. But it was one of the few pieces of evidence they could connect a person directly to Brenda's. Unfortunately, the investigation couldn't turn the evidence into an arrest. There wasn't enough to prove who had killed her, and as the months passed, Brenda's case had slowly faded from the headlines. The people who had known Brenda continued with their lives, but her family never got the opportunity to move on the same way. There was no trial, there was no conviction, and there was no answers. Eventually, Brenda Sue murder became a cold case. For Brenda's sisters, the passage of time didn't erase what happened.
In 2005, nearly 40 years after Brenda's murder, Patricia Buff and Mary McSwain began pushing the Shelby Police Department to reopen the case. They wanted investigators to take another look at what happened to their sister. They wanted to know whether anything had been missed in 1966. Most importantly, they wanted to know if there was anything left that could finally identify Brenda's killer. But when they asked the police for the original case files, they were told something they never expected to hear. The files were missing. Police began searching through storage. They searched for 4 days. Eventually, the case files were found inside an unmarked box. The box also contained files from another murder investigation involving Mary Helen Williams. Finding the file should have been good news, but when investigators began going through the material, they discovered an even bigger problem. Much of Brenda's physical evidence was gone. Her red and white dress, her underwear, and her shoes were missing. The powder puff compact connected to the last morning was gone. The rock believed to have been used to kill her was also missing. 2 blood vials were gone. Fingernail scrapings and a hair sample was also gone. Even branches collected from the crime scene were no longer available. After 40 years, some of the most important evidence from Brenda's murder had simply disappeared. According to police records, Sheriff Allen was the last person documented as having possession of the evidence after retrieving it from the State Bureau of Investigation in Raleigh in August 1966. What happened to the evidence after that wasn't clear. For Brenda's sisters, this had to be devastating. They had spent decades living with an unsolved murder, and when they finally pushed for the case to be reopened, they discovered much more evidence that might have helped solve it was no longer there. But investigators still had one important piece. The bloody palm print from Brenda's shoe had survived, and investigators would eventually try to determine whether that print could finally give them a name. Then something else happened that nobody expected. The case was about to become public again. In the spring of 2006, the Shelby Star published a 13-part series marking the 40th anniversary of Brenda's murder. The newspaper coverage brought Brenda's story back into the community. People were talking about the case again, and shortly after those articles appeared, a woman contacted authorities. Her name was Lori Lale. What she told investigators would change the direction of Brenda's case. She had something to tell them. Her grandfather, Earl Mickey Parker, had allegedly confessed to knowing what happened to Brenda, and he had allegedly named another man. That man's name was Thurman Price. Earl Mickey Parker had been dead since 2002, so investigators couldn't question him about what he allegedly said. The only person who could tell them about this conversation was his granddaughter, Lori Lale. Lale said she had been alone with Parker in his hospital room shortly before his death. According to her, Parker told her that he had done bad things in his life and wanted to get them off his chest. He then began talking to Brenda. Lale said Parker told her that he and Thurman Price had been drinking the night before Brenda disappeared. The next morning, according to the story, Parker allegedly told her the 2 men encountered Brenda near South Lafayette Street. Lyle said Parker claimed that he and Price intended to sexually assault Brenda and pulled her towards the wooded area, but Brenda fought back. According to Lyle, she kicked and scratched Price. That's when the situation became deadly. Lyle testified that Parker said Price picked up a rock and struck Brenda. She said Parker told her they believed Brenda would identify them if she survived, and that Price said they would do real time this time. There was another detail in the alleged confession that immediately caught investigators' attention. Parker reportedly said a young boy had been nearby and witnessed that boy was supposedly Robert Roseborough, and Roseborough wasn't a random name. He was the same 13-year-old boy police had questioned back in 1966. He had lived only 100 yards from where Brenda's body was found, and investigators knew he had been in the area that morning. Suddenly, something from the original investigation appeared to connect with the new information. But there was still a major problem. Parker was dead. His alleged confession couldn't be questioned or challenged by investigators, and Lyle hadn't come forward until years after Parker's death. The defense would later question why she had waited so long and whether her story had changed over time. Still, prosecutors believed the information was enough to move forward, and in February 2007, police arrested 79-year-old Thurman Price. After more than 40 years, Brenda Sue Brown's case finally had an arrest, but Price denied killing Brenda. And now investigators had to prove that the story behind the arrest was true. One of the most important questions was whether the remaining physical evidence could support the alleged confession, investigators still had the bloody palm print taken from Brenda's shoe. If they could compare that print to Earl Mickey Parker, they might have a physical connection between Parker and the crime scene. So in May 2007, Parker's body was exhumed. Investigators attempted to obtain a palm print from his remains, but there was a problem they couldn't overcome. Too much time had passed. Parker's hands had deteriorated to the point that investigators couldn't obtain a usable print. The comparison was inconclusive. There would be no match, and that left prosecutors relying heavily on Lael's account of what her grandfather allegedly told her. There was another piece of information that prosecutors believed was significant. Parker and Price had known each other for years, and they had a criminal history together. In 1954, the two men had been indicted in connection with the sexual assault of a 12-year-old girl. In 1955, they pleaded guilty to assault with intent to commit rape and received suspended prison sentences. That history didn't prove they were responsible for Brenda's death, but it established that Parker and Price had known each other long before Brenda was killed and had previously been involved in a serious crime against a young girl. Now the prosecution had to convince a judge that Parker's alleged deathbed confession could even be presented to a jury. The defense argued against it. Price's attorney, David Teddy, questioned Lyle's credibility and pointed to the years between Parker's alleged confession and Lyle coming forward. There was no recording of Parker, there was no written confession, and Parker wasn't alive to tell the story himself. Everything depended on what Lyle said she remembered. Then there was Robert Roseborough. If Parker's alleged confession was accurate, Roseborough had supposedly witnessed the attack, so prosecutors brought him into court. But the man who took the stand in 2010 was very different from the 13-year-old boy police had questioned in 1966. Roseborough was now an adult serving a life sentence for another murder, and when he was asked about Brenda, he didn't confirm the prosecution's theory. He said he didn't remember her. He even testified that he wouldn't know Brenda if she were standing right in front of him. The alleged witnesses couldn't confirm what Parker supposedly told Lyle, and the palm print couldn't be matched. The prosecution's case was becoming a question of what could be remembered versus what could actually be proven. Then, on February the 9th, 2010, a judge made an important decision. The judge ruled that Parker's alleged deathbed confession and Lyle's testimony could be admitted as evidence. For the first time, Brenda's case had reached the point where the allegations could potentially be heard by a jury. But Brenda's family would never get the trial they had waited decades for. Thurman Price continued to deny that he had anything to do with Brenda's death. The case was moving forward, but it still had serious questions surrounding it. The alleged confession came from a man who was already dead. The woman repeating that confession had waited years before reporting it. The alleged eyewitness couldn't confirm what happened. The palm print couldn't be matched, and much of that original evidence was gone. Then on August the 4th, 2012, Thurman Price died. He was 83 years old, and he died before he could ever stand trial for Brenda Sue Brown's death. That meant there would be no jury verdict, no conviction, no opportunity for Price to tell his side of the story in court. He maintained his innocence until his death. And with his death, one of the biggest questions surrounding Brenda's case became even harder to answer. Was Earl Mickey Parker finally telling the truth on his deathbed? Did he and Thurman Price really know what happened to Brenda? Was the story Lori Lyle told investigators an accurate account of Parker's confession? Or was there another explanation? There is no way to know for certain. What we do know is that Brenda's case began with an 11-year-old girl disappearing on a summer morning in 1966. It remained unsolved for 40 years. Her sisters fought to bring the case back into the spotlight. A newspaper series renewed public interest. A woman came forward with an alleged confession. A man was arrested. A judge ruled that the confession could be used as evidence, and yet after all of that, there was still no conviction, no definitive answer, and no one who could stand in court and finally tell Brenda's family exactly what happened to her. After more than 4 decades of waiting, they were still left with the same question that had haunted them since 1966. Who killed Brenda Sue Brown? Before we end this case, I want to put everything else aside for a moment. Forget the suspects, forget the evidence, forget all the unanswered questions that have followed this story for decades. I want us to remember Brenda. Brenda Sue Brown was born on May 15. She was a daughter, a sister, and an 11-year-old girl growing up in Shelby, North Carolina. She had a family who loved her. She had younger sisters and a mother who expected her to come home. On the morning of July 27, 1966, Brenda walked her 6-year-old sister to Head Start. It was an ordinary morning for a child who had no idea that everything was about to change. Her family expected to see her again. They expected her to come home. They expected there would be another day and then another one after that, but Brenda never got those days. She never got the chance to grow up. She never got to become a teenager, graduate from school, choose a career, travel, and make lifelong friends, fall in love, or discover the person she would become. We don't know what Brenda's future would have looked like, but she deserved to have one. And when we talk about cases like this, sometimes the person at the center can get lost behind the investigation. Brenda shouldn't be remembered only because of the questions surrounding her disappearance. She should be remembered because she was Brenda. She was someone's daughter. She was someone's sister. She was a little girl with a family, a home, and a life that was just beginning. Her sisters continued to remember her long after that summer day in 1966. They continued asking questions and refused to let Brenda's name disappear with the passing of time. And because of that, Brenda's name is still being spoken today. More than 60 years later, we may not know everything about what happened, but we know that Brenda mattered, we know that she was loved, and we know that she should never be forgotten. So when this episode ends, I don't want the last thing you remember to be a suspect or a piece of evidence. I want you to remember an 11-year-old girl named Brenda Sue Brown. Although her life was far too short, her name continues to live on. Brenda Sue Brown deserves to be remembered.
Let's get into some theories. Everyone is a suspect until proven guilty. Let's get into some theories. Lesbian Detectives. What type of thoughts you thinking? What theories running through your mind? I'm thinking all types of suspicion. Uncover the truth, what we can find. Witness say they saw somebody creeping out the back door. What you think they did it for? That's so crazy, I'm not sure. They found a car, where could she be? Here go another puzzle piece. Researching through your history. It's plenty unsolved mysteries. Everyone is a suspect until proven guilty. Let's get into some theories, yeah. Let's get into some theories. Everyone is a suspect until proven guilty. Let's get into some theories. Lesbian Detectives.
You or me?
Go ahead.
So with this case, we all know who done it. It was the two guys. But I hate that the granddaughter took so long to tell the police that what her grandfather said. If she went that day he told her, or even a couple days afterwards, it might have made a difference. He was already dying, so he couldn't, be charged, just be honest. He couldn't go to jail. But he could have helped them solve the case. Because it's kind of weird that all of her evidence is went away. This one detective got it out of storage and never brought it back. We're not thinking about, what he did with it. Did he take it, damage it so they cannot retest it? Because it was everything they needed to solve the case. It was so much that even though the grandfather passed away and then the other man, he passed away, they could have just got their DNA fingernails scrapings and also the other evidence they had. So, they was working with zero evidence for a 40-year-old case. It's just sad that, she died so quickly. She went missing and she probably didn't last 2 hours, like probably an hour. And I always wonder, Robert saw what happened. Why didn't he tell the police, like, hey, I saw these 2 men? Was he scared that they was going to do something to him? Because he did see, like, this little girl get beat to death. And did that change, like, his mindset then? Like, everybody blame me. Everybody think it's me. But I'm also scared, like, I might be next. And then he did go out and murder somebody else. Was he just a scared kid not telling the truth because he didn't want to be next? Because think about it. Seeing somebody get murdered, you're like, yeah, I'm scared. And then the police come to you like, oh, you did. You're like, what? Like, I just saw this little girl got unalive and now I'm getting blamed. It's just sad that this case could be solved, but the 2 suspects are dead and they have no evidence. So that's the messed up part, because her sisters and her family could, like, finally, like, I got my sister justice. But it's like, now how are we going to get justice now? We have nothing, you know?
I mean, I agree. You're mad at the granddaughter for not speaking up earlier, but honestly, the grandfather should have said something a long time ago. But, I mean, sorry to say it, but he was a coward. Like,
Mhm.
he basically confessed on his deathbed. He knew it was wrong. He had been carrying it, but he waited till the last freaking moment, you know? And so it's just unfair that they pretty much got away with it because none of them served time. None of them went to trial.
Mhm.
And they were doing this to little girls. They had been charged with doing that to another girl. So
Mhm.
it's like, what happened with that trial? What
Mhm.
happened? Did they get charged for that? No. They got charged, but did they really serve any time? No. And then it happened again, and it's just like predators like this should be serving like life sentences.
Mhm.
To me, it's like you don't mess with any kids, especially if you're trying to sexually assault them, because it's not going to come to an end. And we only know of these 2 cases. There might have been more.
Mhm.
And so who really failed them? The system.
Right.
Because till this day, there's so many predators out there that are free
Mhm.
to do the next there are so many predators out there that are gonna do the same stuff to another kid because they're not serving proper sentences.
Right.
They
Right.
should be there for, I would say, 30 or more years.
Right. Right. And I always wonder why rape charges don't get a healthy sentence. Like, if you unalive somebody, it's like 25 to life, right? Most rapes, sometimes like 3 or 2 years or probation. You just get on like the list and then that's it. Like, they don't have long sentence. And I remember I was watching, I don't know what show I was watching, and it said that like most predators, that when they go to jail, they come back out, they learn. They know how to like trick the police, or how to cover up their crime, because they're in jail. They're learning from people. You know what I'm saying? So that's like the messed up part, because I know in some countries that's like a life sentence or a death sentence. Like, you touch a kid, you're getting the needle. So I feel like that's one thing I feel like in USA we should like kind of change. Like, if you touch a child, you shouldn't see the light of day no more, because they gonna come out and do it again. I don't care about, oh, they're changed. You cannot change when you touch a kid, because it's like when they say like a bear, when it tastes blood for the first time, it gotta have it again. It gotta have it again. So it's like when they touch a kid for the first time, like, oh, like they learning from their mistake. Like, oh, okay, I did this wrong. Let me try this way. So it's like I don't believe that they will ever change. So that's something that needs to be changed. I'm sorry to say that, but I'm not even sorry.
I mean, it's their life or another kid, another
Mhm.
kid or 2 or maybe 10, like who knows? It should just end with them.
Right. And you're right. It probably happened to more kids. I agree. Well, that's our case. And I feel so heartbroken for Brenda's family, because it seemed like justice so far away. But I hope that the police can find the freaking evidence. Let's talk about that and do their jobs. This is Lesbian Detectives. We're on all podcast platforms. So please Come check us out. Give us a 5-star rating. Like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube. It's an easy way to support us. So please, if you watch on YouTube, like it. This is Lesbian Detectives. Don't forget, everybody's a suspect.
So proven innocent.
Bye. See you next week.
Lesbian Detectives. Unsolved cases. She's still missing. Yeah, they haven't found her yet. Well, let's talk about it.
They say he vanished without a trace. Could it be a psychotic break or a tragic accident? Police don't know where the body went. Unsolved murders, body still missing. That's unheard. Where's the witness? Lesbian detectives, what's going on? City on high alert, this out the norm. He did what, the who? Man, that ain't real, these crimes ain't true. Then come uncover these theories with us. We live right now, tuning in is a must.
Right now, Lesbian Detectives. Lesbian Detectives. We about to start the show, so get your popcorn ready. Let's go. Pay attention to the message I present to you, the Lesbian Detectives.